It is day one, the podcast with Andre Norman, Securus Originals, coming to you straight on the J-Play platform. We just want to say good morning. We want to give you a shout out to all the fellas and the ladies who are tuning in. We appreciate you, every last one of you. And as always, we bring phenomenal guests. And today, we have an extraordinary sister that's come to bless you. And there's not a lot to say to that. I'm saying greatness is just greatness. So we've made it a point at day one to find greatness. People who represent and embody those characters, those intangibles that we want to be. So I know we're in there struggling. I know we're in there having good days, bad days. Well, sister come to talk to you, to enlighten you, to inspire you, to enrich you, to uplift you. So today's the day. Don't be ashamed to get your notepads out. Don't be ashamed. Get your notepad. Sister going to teach you something. I'm saying, as well love on you. So this morning, I have the distinct honor and privilege to introduce to you Sister Kareemah.
Morning. How you doing?
You know I'm doing good.
Great.
I'm saying, you know this is, before we even get started, you know this is straight to the platform, to the folks inside, so they can actually build, grow, and learn. And the concept of day one is just to just share information about transitions people have gone through. So tell us about your journey.
So, of course, I would have to take you back to the age of 15 years old, right? So I would like to say I have more than one day one, because I had a day one, which was the day that I was arrested and I went to juvenile. And then I had a day one, which was the day I entered the Georgia penal system. I actually entered the diagnostics process, right? Which was, the process of being showered, deliced, just the normal process.
What do you mean deliced?
So everybody that comes into the prison system in the state of Georgia has to go through a delicing process, which is you get in the shower.
They throw the stuff on you?
No, they give you some stuff in a bottle, and they stand there and they watch you. They stand there with each individual person, and they watch you squeeze the stuff out and smear it all over your body. And then you stand there for so many minutes with it on your skin, and then they command you, now go under the water and wash.
That's some down south stuff. Listen, I did my time up north. There was no delicing.
Right.
You just showed up and you rolled in. That's crazy.
It's real. It happens. And there are people, well, that's another story, but there are people who are actually allergic to that product, but everybody has to use it.
So day one, juvie, what was that like?
I remember coming in from a homicide in the middle of the night, and my clothing being taken and being given a blue T-shirt and being allowed to keep my pants and my shoes that I came in, and like just looking up and hearing like these doors closing and like maybe areas that were used for visitation like coming through like the intake area. So maybe like if individuals who maybe have attorney visits before they actually enter the system, or as a juvenile, maybe you had a caseworker that was working with you. So I just remember looking into these cells with these clear glass windows and like just kind of looking around myself and just feeling like this wasn't real. Like is this really happening to me? And I do believe like in the beginning, and as I process it from a level of experience and also as a psychology major, like I understand that I was having some disassociation and that it wasn't really real to me. I think I made myself believe that maybe I was locked up for shoplifting or something and this would all go away. Like I believe that.
I've done a ton of interviews, and I'm a word guy. I'm a motivational speaker, so words matter.
Right.
Please back up and break down disassociation.
So the process of disassociation is like it's an both emotional and physical transition where like you're unable to associate what is happening in real time, right? Or some people view it as things that are happening as a dream or a vision. Sometimes they feel like they are inside of the dream. Sometimes they feel like they're watching something happening on TV. So disassociation is like the inability to kind of psychologically receive what is happening to you, emotionally accept like what is actually happening to you. And different people process it different ways. Some people, especially young people, they may show anger. Women that are a little bit more mature, they might be very emotional, like just crying, like just can't stop crying. For me, it was like numbness. It was kind of like a look around, like, is this happening? I had never been inside of a juvenile before. I had always drove past that building as a child. I don't even thought I knew that they actually like lock people up there. I thought it was like outside. It was like Department of Family and Children Services, and in court, right? So I thought like that was for kids who like maybe were going into foster care and they had to go before a judge. I didn't know like there were people in there and there were people locked in rooms, and I didn't know that.
Then they locked you in a room.
They locked me in a room. Yes.
What was your thinking beyond the disassociation of being locked in the room?
So I don't remember a whole lot because it's been so long, but I remember that because I had a violent crime and most people who were in juvenile were locked up for like shoplifting and truancy, they placed me in a cell by myself, right? There was just a mattress. There were no sheets, and I was there for 3 days, and it was like for observation reasons, right? And I remember on the third day, back in line with the whole disassociation, I remember feeling like the walls had closed in on me. I remember feeling like, literally like if you go to the carnival and you go in these these mirrored rooms and it kind of has this warped. I remember feeling like I couldn't believe I was in this very small cell. And I remember like crying so like by the third day it hit me. And I remember like crying so bad, like just like sobbing and just like wanting my mama, It was very emotional.
How was your relationship with your mother prior?
So prior to being incarcerated, I was a rebellious teenager. So probably the last 3 years before I actually got arrested, I spent a lot of time running away from home and just being rebellious and skipping school and just.
Because I hear that a lot. When we're in the street, we running.
Yeah.
We ain't calling up. We ain't checking in. We ain't doing none of that. And then we get arrested. The first person, everybody sat in that chair, has told me they called. 9 out of 10 times was mom.
Right. My mother was with me while I was being interrogated because I was a juvenile.
Got you.
My mother was with me when they took me to the Fulton County Juvenile. She was with me until I walked into the building, and then she could not enter. And it wasn't a physical phone call.
You just crying out
I was
to her.
just crying out, like, I want my mama. And it's so weird because there was a period in my life when I felt like my mother was my enemy.
That's
right?
what I mean, yeah. We went from, I don't want to listen to you be around you, to where she at.
Right. That is correct. And I think a lot of people experience that, especially young people. When I was 15, I felt like I was the smartest person in the world and every adult was the dumbest person in the world. Like I thought I knew more than them. And I have actually had that conversation with a lot of young people who have felt the exact same way.
So we're going to fast forward to sentencing. Judge comes out, trial's over, deal is over, whatever happens over it, and it's time to be sentenced. What did the judge tell you?
I don't remember his words exactly.
I mean, what was the sentence?
I was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences in the state of Georgia, and that I would never be released is what I was told.
So are you disassociating again? That's the time to disassociate. When he comes out and says 2 life sentences.
That period was that was a warped day for me, a very warped day.
The sentencing day,
the sentencing day was very warped. I do remember that I used to read Ayanna Van Zant's daily devotional every morning. And oddly enough, on that day, the devotional said, "You have been hoodwinked, bamboozled, tricked," right? And I thought, oh, what does this mean? And the day of the sentencing, because I got found guilty a different day than the day I actually got sentenced. And I remember reading that, and I don't think I read her books anymore after that. It was kind of like, those devotionals was kind of like a horoscope for me. Like I wouldn't read the horoscope, but I would read like this daily devotional every day. And I won't forget, that's what the devotional said on that day. You have been hoodwinked, bamboozled, tricked. And I was like, what does that mean? When the judge passed down that sentence, I understood exactly what it meant.
So what runs through your mind when the judge says 2 life sentences, you're not going home?
Sorrow. But I think my sorrow was more so about the way my family responded in court.
How did they respond?
It was a lot of wailing, crying, and people passing out.
How old were you at the time of sentencing?
I was 18. Fulton County held me until I became of age before they even crunk up the jury.
So you were a juvenile at the time of your arrest.
That is correct.
They held you and tried you as an adult.
That is correct.
then sentenced you to 2 life sentences at 18.
That is correct.
Did they put you in a van and take you straight to diagnostic, or you go back to juvie?
They took me back to jail. When I turned 17,
They moved you to the county.
To the county jail, from the juvenile to the jail. They took me back to the county jail and they put me on suicide watch.
Were you suicidal?
I was not, but that's protocol.
Okay.
Anybody that is given a life or death sentence in the state of Georgia is placed on suicide watch.
For how long?
Till a doctor comes to see you.
Then they clear you and they let you out. Mm-hmm. The last phone call you made before they transferred you was to who? You're going to get transferred whatever day, and they know, okay, the van's coming today or the van's coming tomorrow. Who was the last person you called before you left county to go to state?
Probably my mother. I don't really recall, but it probably was something around the lines of, they say I'm leaving tomorrow. I'm not supposed to know. I probably was talking in code because the phone calls are being recorded, and it's a breach of security when you know that you're being transferred, even if you're going from jail to prison. Like, it's a breach. So what they would normally do is if they knew that I knew I was leaving, my transfer would be delayed for a different day.
Got you. You remember what she said to you?
I'm sure it was probably something very positive and motivational and inspirational because that's the woman that she is.
You get on the van or the bus, they take you to the prison. I guess there's other people on the bus. You walk in day one. What does it look like?
It looks like loud noises, people incarcerated wearing free world clothes, wearing colorful T-shirts and colored shorts and colored shoes. And if you saw what Georgia Corrections looks like now and what it looked like 30 years ago, you wouldn't believe it. People with leopard print pumps on and furs around their neck.
Yeah.
It didn't look like prison. It did not look like prison.
I remember. I went to jail in 85. So you get there in early, you're in diagnostic. They do the lice thing again, or you good?
When you go through diagnostics is the only time they do the lice thing.
They did it at the county.
They did not do it.
They did it at
county.
the state.
Yes. At the county, literally, they just put you in a holding cell, run your paperwork, dress you out, send you where you're going.
Gotcha. So when you get there, they do the lice thing.
Mm-hmm.
That alone just sounds horrific.
It's very dehumanizing to have to stand there and be instructed and told what to do and be in a different environment where you're really not comfortable because you don't know what's going to happen next. People always come to the county jail and kind of tell you what's going to happen when you get to prison, people who have been there before. But I don't think that I was mentally prepared for that process. But I just remember being this young girl who was just standing there looking at all these other people naked around me and just thinking how long they want me to stand here? It wasn't a big deal for me. It was, but it wasn't because people around me were having a different response to what was happening. And once again, there was that disassociation. So it was just kind of I remember looking around the shower and looking at the guards and it's kind of like boot camp style when you get there. So they screaming in your face, they yelling at you, degrading you, Georgia's something else. Coming in. Because it's like they giving you a scared straight
indoctrinate you to their system. Welcome to penitentiary 101.
Mm-hmm. And I think the scared straight it's too late because
you got 2 life sentences.
Right. This is not a tour. This is the real deal.
So when you walk out, they give you a dorm, you go out. What do you do? I mean, you walk in the door with 2 life sentences. You go through the process of being dehumanized, and you walk out onto the main yard to GP, and what do you do with that?
I guess initially, I was just trying to figure stuff out and figure out who people were. That's something that I understood from the streets, is that same system exists in prison, right? You got your high rollers, you got your flunkies, you got your do boys, you got it's a system. And so I immediately began trying to figure out the system, who was who and what was what. And by the time I got to my dorm, it was at nighttime. So I didn't actually hit the compound until the next morning, right? And in the county jail, you can't smoke, but in prison, you could. So I'm trying to figure out who I could get a cigarette from because I ain't had a cigarette in 3 years. So I'm trying to find me a Newport. Who got Newport? So something that has been was impactful my whole sentence and even after I came home, because we always stayed in contact, there was an older lady who was one of the high rollers that came to me my first day on the yard and was like, hey, what's your name? And I was like, Kareemah. And she was like, how old are you? And I was like, 18. And she was like, if anybody with you, tell them, over all your daddy, right? And I said, okay, right? And this person, like, basically took me under their wing. She had a son and a daughter that was a year older than me and a year younger than me. So she took me under her wing and, like, literally provided for me as if she was a parent. She was probably one of the most feared female inmates in the state of Georgia.
Why'd she pick you?
She just saw a kid. She saw a kid who was, like, trying to figure it out. And in my maturity, like, I see young people and I can identify when they're trying to figure things out.
What was some of the hardest things you had to transition coming into that space? County jail, you're hoping to go home. Even though you probably think you ain't going home, you still hope. There's hope.
So I always say, everybody in the county jail says they didn't do it. But by
course.
the time you get to prison, everybody did it. Even if they didn't do it,
you did it.
Well, say you did it because you're here, right? Majority of the people that I've met in the county, I'd be like, you the same person told me you ain't do it. Well, the family gets, I'm here now. It was me, you know.
Yeah. How long did it take you? Because I've interviewed a lot of folks who had life sentences. My big homie had a life sentence. He came in at 18. He was in his 30s before he realized he accepted that he was like, this is what it is. So he just ran around like he was doing a 3 to 5 for a long time.
That is correct.
So at what point did you go from, I'm not doing a 3 to 5, and I'm actually doing a life sentence? How long did it take you to really snap in and realize that?
This was my process. Like I said, when I first came in, like, I thought I was moving like I was locked up for shoplifting, right? Once I actually got to prison and went through the diagnostics process, and it was so crazy because I won't say, like, I'm real different, but my background is very different. And so I literally had people try to make me, and I'm going to answer your question, but I'm going to lead up to it. I had people try to make me believe that things from my past were not true, okay? I had a counselor who was African who told me, you didn't used to live in Africa. You didn't go to boarding school in Africa. You're making this up. Until my psychological reports came from the free world, right? From, like, where I had experienced this trauma, and these things were brought up during my trial. Then he came back and apologized to me. He was like, oh, you really did used to live in Africa. Oh, I saw the paperwork. Oh, you told me I was a liar. And I'm thinking, just because the majority of this population has never gone past the red light, or they've never left their city or their town, like, that's not everybody, right? So they try to make me think that what my memories were not real. They were very real. My life before I came to prison was very real, right? The loss and trauma that I experienced was very real. And so after I got there, I remember having a meeting with the same counselor, and he gave me my release paperwork, right? And when he handed it to me, it had 99999, right? Which means that I don't have a max out date because I have life. So that was my initial kind of light bulb moment when they gave me that paperwork. I remember calling my mother every week till one day she told me, stop calling me, asking me to call this hotline. This number is not going to, this date is not going to change, right? I would have her call, the number used to be like 6565651. Like, I knew it by heart. It was a 404 number. And it was an automated number where you could call and it would give you your release date. And it would say, this inmate is sentenced to life. Maximum release date, 99999, right? And I would have my mother call on three-way all the time. Like, I thought it was going to change. And one day she said, stop asking me to call.
So the caseworker gave you your paper with the 9999.
So that was, like, right after I got there. So oddly enough, I think I had done, like, maybe 10 years in prison. There was a counselor that called me in her office, and she said, we're here to do your case plan. And I thought, we do this every month, no big deal. And she asked me, she said, what are you going to do when you get out? And I said, get out? Me? She said, yeah. I said, I'm not getting out. She said, well, the computer says they'll look at you in 2013. What are you going to do when you get out? And I started crying, bawling my eyes out.
You didn't know you had parole eligibility?
I did. I knew that I had one, but I did not know that they don't give you a date. They don't give you a date because you have a max out. right? You don't have a max out. It's that 99999.
No, see,
So in
the
the
pro
state of
eligibility is the same. Your pro eligibility didn't pop up at year 5. Your max out is no max out, but your pro eligible is the same based on your sentence.
So exactly, and because I had 2 consecutive life sentences, right? The law when I got arrested was 7 years for life, but because they split them,
14.
they wanted 20 before I was eligible. So maybe I knew it's an OCGA law. Maybe I knew subliminally they wanted 20 before they would ever look at me.
Right.
But I don't, I don't think that because I remember being so emotional when she asked me, "What are you gonna do when you get out?" I was like, "Me, I ain't getting out." Like that's where I was. Like, me, what I'm gonna do when I get out? I ain't getting out. Like, and she was like, "You have a, they will look at you." And a lot of people who are under the 7-year guideline are like some people are like on their 40th year, they're still in prison. Under the 7-year guideline. There are people who were there when I got there 30 years ago that are still there.
You've been home for how long?
For 3 years.
What have you been doing since you've been home?
Strategizing, mobilizing, organizing, strategizing, and mobilizing in the community. In school, working 3 jobs. When I first came home, I was feeling a little anxiety around like the whole background check thing. So one of the things that I did while I was in prison was get my cosmetology license. And so I came through the transition center where I was able to save some money. And so I opened a salon off the rip. Like I was like, okay, so that I don't have to deal with the background check, this is what I'm going to do. I have this cosmetology license. What I need is a business license. I need a place to open up my business. I need chairs, barber chairs, shampoo bowls, stations, and this is what I'm going to do. And so for like the first year and a half that I was out, I was running the salon. And the only reason why I was a year and a half is because COVID hit.
Hold up. So you're walking around, the caseworker says, "What are you going to do?" Then you realize, I got to do something. So you started going to educational programs and getting certificates, and you taught yourself how to do hair and got licensed. So what did you do what did you do the first 10 years towards your come home? The last part, you worked hard, it sounds like. You got licensed, you got your mind right, you were working hard, you were dedicated. What did you do for the first 10 years?
I think I spent 10 years trying to figure out the system. Because by year 10, I had it. I had everything figured out. I knew who to go to what, how, when, where, and why. But sadly, it took me 10 years to master it. When you realize you got to be somewhere, what I mean by figuring out the system is I had to figure out who I needed to move where I wanted to move, to live where I wanted to live, to work where I wanted to work, to change my visitation when it wasn't time to change my visitation, to change my phone list when it wasn't time to change my phone list. Those are the systems that I had to figure out. Who the warden was, who the deputy warden was, who the chief counselor was, who could get me in an educational program that I didn't meet the requirements for. These are the things that I had to figure out.
So if you had to do it again, would you spend the first 10 years doing the same stuff? Or would you be working towards your education? Trying to figure out where you can get your housing?
Here's the deal, and this is something that I would like to share with everybody, is that it's stages to this thing.
Oh, for sure.
When you get there and your freedom has been snatched from you and you're trying to acclimate and you're trying to figure out counts, right? And you're trying to figure out feeding times and you're trying to figure out when they ain't going to feed you. Because in Georgia, they don't feed you on the weekends, okay? Ain't no lunch on the weekends. If you ain't got a noodle, you're just hungry. They don't feed you in Georgia on the weekends. It's breakfast and dinner only, okay? So figuring out, and it's so crazy because it's like, I went from trying to figure out when counts were, which count you had to stand up for and which count you didn't, which count you could be in school for and which count you couldn't, to literally when I was released from prison and I was running my own business, I would not schedule clients around count times. Count is at 12 o'clock in Georgia. And in my mind, I couldn't leave my home until after 12 o'clock. There was somewhere I was supposed to be at 12 o'clock. There was somewhere I was supposed to be at 7 a.m. Every morning, I wake up at 4 a.m. I've been doing that for 20 years. I still do it. My husband told me, "Do you know you wake up every morning at 4 o'clock? And it's not a full awoke, it's a rollover. Take a deep sigh, and then meditate myself back to sleep." But I trained myself to get up so like the last maybe 8 years of my sentence, I got up every morning at 4 a.m., cleaned the showers, took a shower, prayed, jumped on JPay when the computers cut on. I was the first one on the computer every morning. That was my plan. I was out when nobody else was out.
How long did you actually serve?
26 years.
If I sit you with an 18-year-old Kareemah and you can advise her the best path, I mean, I don't need to burn my hand and know the stove is hot.
So that is correct. So I would say, if I was talking to my younger self, like, live your best life no matter where you are, right? Like, you don't have to be lost, or you don't have to conform to the ways of the land. Like, you can create your own path. But having strong people around you is what is important. Having a network of people around you. Every goal that I wrote while I was incarcerated has come into fruition. Every single goal that I wrote down. I told my husband, I said, you was part of my plans too, you just didn't know it. I wrote a plan and said, I'm gonna be home this long and I'm gonna be married. I'm gonna get my college education. I'm gonna graduate with my associates. I'm gonna get my bachelor's. I'm going straight into my master's. I'm gonna be an organizer. I'm gonna leave here and I'm gonna look back and I'm gonna help everybody that is still here. I'm gonna be a voice for the voiceless. These are the things that I said. I'm going to go home and take care of my parents. That's what I did. I'm going to have my own car. Before I went to prison, I didn't even know how to drive. I had to learn all of these things. But literally everything I wrote out was a plan for my life. And even when things don't go the way that I expected, I just have to pivot. It's real. Even on the inside, you just have to pivot. Things don't go the way you plan it. That don't mean you got to completely deviate. That means you just got to pivot just a little bit. Just instead of making a beeline, you just take a little curve so you can get back on course.
So I'm hearing 16-year-old Kareemah didn't have a plan or purpose.
I did not.
How does it feel to live in purpose now?
So living in my purpose is very fulfilling. When I run all day long, work, school, interviews, outreach programs with the youth, at the end of the day, I'm dog tired, but I feel fulfilled because I feel like my life has value. And it's so crazy. When I was in the prison, I used to say, I would rather be homeless than do this. I wanted to experience the struggle and turmoil of life, real life, of paying bills, of getting up and going to work, of doing this, of doing that, of doing this, of doing that. This is what I wanted, right? I wanted to feel that anxiety when it's time to pay my phone bill. And it's also a good feeling when you don't have to check your account to see if the money is there. It's a good feeling when you don't have to look to see when I get paid again. It's a good feeling when you get paid. One job pay you one Friday, the second job pay you the next Friday, and your small business pay you every Sunday, right? But when I was there and I began to think about what I wanted for my life and what I wanted my life to look like, a large percent of that was recording my thoughts. And when I get in a funk out here and I feel like things are not going my way and I just start feeling blah, I go back to my journals from prison to remind me of where I've been and where I am now.
Remember this?
Yes, I remember that.
There's everybody right now, the state of Georgia, has one of these in their hand, and they're watching you. They're watching this interview on this. This is a JPay platform, Securus original video series. We're actually making this exclusively for brothers and sisters inside. So they're right now, as much as you remember this, whatever you remember, they are right now. They're not watching us on a TV set. They're watching us on one of these. So I need you to look at them and tell them something.
If I had access to someone who had been formerly incarcerated talking to me through the JPay tablet, it definitely would have been impactful to give me some hope, to restore hope. I think that hope is very important. I think something that is missing is the absence of hope in people that are incarcerated. I spent a lot of time actually watching like Khan Academy videos just to refresh my math skills, or like look at a video about nature. But there wasn't anything specifically geared towards the incarcerated population. I think it's very important for people to understand that as an individual that was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences that made it out, like there is hope. If I can do it, anybody can do it. And, my life is not a fairy tale. Every day is not a great day, but I do the best with what I have, you know? And there will be days when things will just look so dark, but if you could just see or create a pin light of hope. And I always use the analogy of like a piece of paper where you take a pen and you just poke a little bitty hole in that paper. But if you just keep pushing forward, the light begins to come through. And it was that pin light of hope that brought me out after 26 years. And that allowed me to dream again and to believe in myself again and to believe that there is good in this world and that you go into a store and you're looking for lime and you end up buying lemons, but you can make lemonade.
There was no content back in the day exclusively for you. You're creating content exclusively for them. Are you creating it for you too? Because that's what we're missing, and that's why you're here. Because your story is beautiful, and your message is, they're waiting for you. We've been waiting all day, waiting all month, waiting all year for this.
This is like a fulfillment of purpose for me because something that I promised God while I was in prison is if I ever made it out, I would never forget about the people that are left behind. And this is my way of motivating people and inspiring people and encouraging people. When you in your cell at night and you close your eyes, you got to deal with yourself. But once you deal with yourself, you can move forward. And when you forgive yourself, doors begin to open up. For a long time, I felt like the parole board was dragging me. This system just dragging me. These white folks, they dragging me. Nah, I wasn't being punished. I was being prepared for something greater, for something bigger, for something larger than myself.
There are people right now who are watching us on their tablet who have given up, they're depressed, they think they might not even have a life sentence. They're just giving up. They've been through too much. It's just too much to bear. And they just want to do it no more. And they're contemplating whatever they're contemplating. And for whatever reason, they pulled this tablet out one more time. I'm going to watch one more show. And they clicked on and it's you. And their plans was like, man, after this show's, I'm just trying to find my time. I'm waiting for the time so I can do my thing because I don't want to be here no more. So I'm going to pass my time. I'm going to click on, Kareemah, what's she talking about? You know those people. You know those moments. I need you to look in that camera right there and speak to that person and tell them something because that's on your list. You about to save a life.
So there are two things that I want to emphasize. One is spirituality. Whatever you choose, whatever is your truth, whatever works for you, you got to have an anchor. That anchor can be meditation. That anchor can be prayer. That anchor can be singing. That anchor can be helping other people. And what really brought me through these 26 years was finding my purpose and learning to flourish and grow no matter where I was. And so for me, my mentality became I have to be the best person that I am no matter where I'm at, right? Something else I would like to share is that people, especially young people, especially women, there's this emotional component. A lot of times in prison, we form our own families. Mother, grandmother, auntie, sister, cousin. Sometimes you got a daddy. Finding this purpose of caring for other people, for helping other people move forward with their dreams. There was a period when I thought, okay, I'm never going to get out, and so I spent a lot of time tutoring younger people so that they could be successful. And I would always say, you may be the next president, Maybe the next president gonna be a black woman. Maybe the next president is gonna be a woman. Maybe the next governor is gonna be such and such and such. And so I would use my time to help other people, to motivate other people, to encourage other people. And it's important that you find your purpose, but not just any purpose. Don't aspire to be the next drug dealer, the next thief, the next scammer, but aspire to contribute something positive into the world. And something that I always say to one of my mentors, Ambassador Andrew Young, is that when I die, I would like for a tree to be planted in my name so that people can still eat from that fruit long after I am gone. Meaning, I would like to create good deeds, gifts, share jewels with people that they can use long after I'm dead, long after this video cuts off, something that will ring true with the soul, that they can carry with themselves for the duration of not just their sentence, but their life, that will allow them to always move forward and never move backwards. And always remember, just because all of the fish are swimming towards you does not mean that you have to swim in that same direction. And sometimes it's difficult to swim against the current, but it can happen because that was the path that I chose, to swim against what everybody else was doing.
In closing, because day one is coming to a close. Never would I ever forget about the sisters. We've talked about people. We've talked about transition. We've talked about support, about purpose, about life. But this is important because there's women, not just men. I need a message for the sisters, specific, direct, for them. Guys will be all right. They on timeout.
Live in your greatest capacity, whatever it is, whatever your strengths are, to make them stronger. Because the question always is, you ready? Are you locked in, or is the world locked out? Meaning, it is your perspective. It is your perception. And the way that we experience certain things is according to our perception. Is it going to be positive? Is it going to be negative? And I can't stress it enough that if you can find your purpose and live in your purpose where you are, whether you have a release date for tomorrow or whether you never have a release date, you have to live your best life. I don't mean like best life. I mean like live your best life no matter where you are, no matter what it looks like. Because in 1993, nobody could have made me believe that this nightmare would ever be over and that I would be released and I would be out here back on this side living as a productive member in society.
Sister Kareemah, I applaud you. We salute the mind. We salute your story. And we appreciate your presence. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado and with much respect, I say greetings to my sister, and we say peace be unto you.
Assalamu alaikum.